in Exploration Toolkit, you can have a system of picking up items. So here in this demo scene, we have a barrel, and if I hover over it, you can see the interaction system is detecting that I am looking at a barrel, and the crosshair controller is changing to a little hand. And when I left click, I'm going to pick up the barrel, it plays a sound, and I can basically carry it around with me. Now, you might want the player to pick up an item to unlock a door, pick up an item, maybe a key card or something, or maybe they have to deliver an item to a certain location to trigger an event. You can put down items as well, and this can of course be enabled or disabled. You can hold down E, and it will have this little graphic here where we can sort of look at the surface and it is going to place or show us where the item is going to be placed, and we can let go to then place it down. Now you'll notice that it also has a system of checking to see if anything is obstructing the placing of the item. So if I try and place it inside of the leg here, it's not going to work. Only if it is in an open area will it be able to be placed down. So we can pick up and place down objects like that, and this is known as a world placement. Okay, there are two types of placements. The second type is a place point. Place points are essentially specific locations where a pick-upable can be placed. So for example, this gem right here, we can pick it up, but if I hold down E, you can see I can't actually place it down anywhere. This is using a place point system. And this place point has been set as the inside of this chest here. So if I hold down E and look at the chest, you'll see it only gets placed down at this specific location. And if I let go, it places it, and we can then trigger an event. So maybe you have a pressure plate and you want the player to put a heavy object on it to trigger a door to open or something like that. So yep, if I pick up the gem, you can see it only places inside of here because that is its designated place point. Now, place points are not just one-to-one for an item, they can also be based on a matching tag. So for example, here we have a little chessboard, and on the chessboard here, each tile has a corresponding place point with the tag of, let's just say, chessboard. So when I pick up a chess piece, this is only going to be placed not on a specific place point, but on a place point that is with the tag chess. So we can place it down here, place that one there, so on and so forth. Okay. Likewise, if I pick up the gem, I am not actually able to place it down on any of these because it does not have the matching tag. This gem is specifically looking for this place point in the chest. As well as that, we can also have finer control over where we place our items. So if I pick up the compass here, for example, and hold down E to place it, I can actually use the scroll wheel to rotate it. So if you want to have finer control, you might want to be able to position stuff. Maybe you want to design a base, for example. The player can place down tables and chairs and other furniture and rotate them to basically point in a specific direction. And also not featured here is snapping. So you can also make it so that when you place down an object, it can snap to specific units. So you might want it to snap to a meter by meter grid, or maybe a 0.1 sized grid. So you can have that set up as well. Now let's hop over into the inspector and have a look at how this is all set up. So the way that a pick-upable is created is, first of all, let's have a look at the barrel here. So on our barrel, we have a number of components. We first of all have the interactable component, and this right here is what we need to attach to anything we want to be able to interact with, to look at or click on to do something. And this interactable here, basically, we just have a crosshair assigned, the hand open crosshair, but no events. Now, the reason why we don't need an onInteract event is because the pick-upable component is automatically going to be listening for those events. So the pick-upable component is basically what we attach to an object if we want to pick it up. And there are a large number of different settings here. Also, make sure we have a collider of some sort so we can actually detect the raycast. So let's have a look at the pick-upable component. First of all, we can decide if we want this to be picked up in the world and or equipped from the inventory. So if this is an item we want to equip, ideally you probably just want to enable the bottom one, or if it's an item that you just want to pick up in the world and place down, you can enable the top one. Down here in holding, we can define the hold scale because some items, when you pick them up, they're very small. For example, the chess pieces over here, if I select one of them, you'll see that its hold scale is set to 2 because by default, it would be very small in the player's hands, and when we're holding it, we probably want it to be a bit larger, so we can modify the scale here. Then what we have is the hold pivot. Now, if I select the barrel again, the hold pivot is essentially the offset from where we are holding it. Because if we go to our player and go into their head, the main camera, they have an empty game object as a child of the camera. And this is essentially where that item is going to be positioned and parented to when it's picked up. And for the barrel here, it has a little bit of an offset, just so that it's not, up near the player's head, but rather a bit lower down. And then we have colliders to disable. Colliders to disable are essentially the colliders we want to, disable when it is picked up. You might want this to happen because you probably don't want a collider for the barrel to be intersecting the player. It'll push them around and cause errors, not errors, but bugs and glitches. So we're essentially disabling the barrel's collider when it is picked up in the player's hands. And then down here we have placement. Now, by default, you're probably not going to have placement for things such as keys, but if you want an object for the player to be able to put down in the world, like an item or a barrel in this case, you can enable can place down. And then you can define a place point if you want to override the position where it places down. By default, it's just the object's base transform pivot point. And then you can define a place type. Right now, the barrel is set to world, whereas if I select the gem here, you'll see its place type is set to place point. And if we have a look at our chess pieces here, you can see that these have a place point tag of chess piece. And if I select the chessboard and go into one of its place points here, you can see that it has the place point component. And here we can basically define a bunch of settings for this as well. And we also define a tag. So only a pick-upable with the tag chess piece can be placed on this point here. Whereas with the crate, for example, if we open up the gem box, its placement query is not set to tag, but desired pick-upable. This means that it is looking for a specific pick-upable object to be placed inside here. And that is the gem right there. Now, you can go through the place points and have a look at them a bit closer if you want to have a look at the settings here, but we're going to go back to our pick-upables for now. Okay, let's go back to our barrel. So we can do that. Then we can also define, basically, if you have a world placement type, you can have an obstruction check. This essentially makes it so that when we're placing down or in the process of placing down our object, we can make it so it is going to basically do a physics overlap box call to check to see if there are any obstructing colliders. Because again, you don't want to place this inside of a wall or anything like that. So if you enable this, you will be able to define the bounds that it will check. So this orange rectangle right here is basically the rectangle that is going to check to see if there are any intersecting colliders, and you can define a layer mask for that. Also, if you want it to snap its placement position, you can enable do snap placement position. And if we set it to 0.1, let's see what this looks like. So we should then be able to pick up the barrel, and when we place it down, it is going to snap to basically the nearest unit of 0.1, as you can see, like that. So we can then have much more finer control. For example, if you're having furniture, you might want to have that based on a grid, whereas if you're placing down items, you might want that to be a bit more dynamic. So I'm just going to disable that for the barrel. And then finally, we have some sounds. So you can use a global audio. So hopefully you can find some useful ways of implementing pick-upables inside of your game.